We have over 1,000 team members between Philippines and Mexico. Revenue-wise, we're doing right at like 1.2 million a month in MRR.
So you went from 400 in COVID to about 1,000-ish today. So you've 2.5x during COVID?
Yeah, correct. We went from 100% work on-site to 100% work from home in like 10 days. We had no idea what we were doing. Software doesn't talk back to you. Software doesn't have love triangles at the office or drama. 10 years from now, is there even going to be a call center agent? Or is that just going to be an AI agent?
All right, Nathan, welcome to Nikonomics. I'm stoked to have you here. Why don't we just get into some meat and potatoes? Tell me, what is your business and how do you make money?
My business is Support Zebra, and we help fast-growing either SaaS or e-com companies scale by turning customer requests into brand ambassadors. So we do that through full end-to-end customer service solutions. In traditional words, it would be call center.
I'm an idiot, so that'll be helpful for me to say call center. You have a call center. Are they doing all inbound? Like, is this all, hey, I'm a growing SaaS company and I need someone to handle these leads that are coming in. Can you please take the phone for me? Or is this also outbound?
We do a component of outbound, but outbound is only when it comes to like callbacks, or we don't do any lead gen. We don't do any like outbound sales initiatives.
Your target customer are SaaS companies.
SaaS and e-com. So really quickly, like if to say like what we do is you come to us, you're a SaaS company, you've got product market fit, you're scaling, you can't handle the volume of requests, you can't handle your wait times are getting super long, you want to focus on growth. So we come in, all of our project manager, Accenture project managers, they come in and they literally, it's like a consulting project. Hey, let's define what your goals are for customer service. I want CSAT, customer service satisfaction, to be this. I want my average wait time to be this. We then build out and architect a full game plan. We'll build out your playbooks, your processes, your KPIs, your dashboards.
Wow.
We'll build out your training programs. We then hire the team. And then I think the most important, but the overlooked part of it, is that we'll manage that team evergreen. So like the daily huddles, the weekly business reviews, the monthly reviews. We'll architect and give out like a midterm and long-term AI strategy. And we actually have a team of 15 devs on our innovations team that will build out efficiencies and automations for your customer service functions. It's a whole holistic customer service function in a box.
All right. So call center does not do it justice. You're more of a sales team.
I hate the word call center because I feel like it brings up like, oh, like everybody has had like a bad call with Comcast or Sprint. I'm like, oh my God. So like, I think it gives us a bad rap. So yes, we are much more than a
You're an outsourced sales team.
We tell clients that we want to be and we will serve as your outsourced CX, customer service solutions, and strategy partner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they ever outgrow you? Do they ever bring it in-house?
They can, and they have. It's happened once I started this in 2009, so it happened once in the 15 years.
Okay. So not very, because I could see myself as a company being like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll use him for a little bit, but eventually I'm going to bring this in-house, and then eventually never comes. You know, you do such a good job. They're literally a part of your team. Why would you ever bring it in-house?
Yeah. I mean, if all the big, especially like telecom is huge, airlines are huge buyers of outsourcing. They all have massive teams. I think like Comcast has upwards of 25,000 folks on their outsourcing team spread globally.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. T-Mobile has 10, 20,000. Uber has like 25,000. And that's to the point where they're like vendor managers, where they have 10 different outsourcing companies and they stack rank and see how they want to allocate spend between each one. But on a smaller scale, like for startups or mid-sized businesses, like you don't just get the agent or the team of agents. You get a team lead, you get a team lead managed, like the project manager, day-to-day performance. You get a QA that's checking the interactions, making sure they're following the script, making sure that, or the framework, make sure they're flag any calls where the customer is obviously pissed off. We have a workforce manager that helps with staffing and optimizes your staffing levels. We have a trainer that builds out all the training content. Like a whole army,
all right. I want to get into that. My first question though is, there's lots of people, especially on social media, who have had outsourced experience, right? You've got Nick Huber, who has, it's now somewhere, but it's, was Support Shepherd. John Matzner's got Sagan. Anyways, there's like a group of people who are working on this virtual assistant or outsourced kind of business model.
Yeah.
to me, most of those companies that they're describing are fairly small or like growing into what they want to become. To hear you describe the fact that you have like a customer service rep and, you know, an implementation manager and a QA and all the other stuff that you named, I'm guessing you're not a small company. Can you give me an idea of like how big is this company?
Sure. Well, from a team size, we have over 1,000 team members between Philippines and Mexico currently.
Wow.
Revenue wise, we're doing right at like 1.2 million a month in MRR, in recurring revenue.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How long has it been that way? Like, is this a business? I think you said you started in 2009. Has it just been growing steadily, or did you explode and then, you know, kind of steady? Or
COVID was a catalyst. I mean, I know you have a lot of startup folks that listen to your podcast, to the podcast. So I want to take it back to like reality on how it originally started, if that works.
Yeah.
So starting in 2009, we had no idea what we were doing. We had a hospice that needed some medical billing work. It was being outsourced to another company. We weren't really happy with the service that we were getting. We found out it was being outsourced to the Philippines. So we said, okay, let's just bring that in-house. My family's from the Philippines, so that's like my unfair advantage. My family's from the Philippines. My parents are here in the US, but a ton of relatives over there. All of them are in business over there. So went over to the Philippines, set up our own office, and then kind of grew from there. And we didn't know what we didn't know. We thought if we built it, they would come. And so the first like probably 3 to 5 years, I think we almost shut the doors several times, at least 3 times.
Why?
I completely underestimated the IT part of things, like keeping a call center online 24/7, so like redundancy, infrastructure. This is way before cloud. Multiple internet and fiber lines coming in, natural disasters in the Philippines. Like underestimated that. Very underestimated the whole management piece of just managing people. Like when people are your product, there's not just like software doesn't talk back to you.
Totally agree.
Software doesn't have love triangles at the office or drama. So this was all new to me as well. And then this is my first like go at figuring out distribution and sales too. So all of that, like I was a very young, I mean, to put in context, 2009, I was 22 when I started it. So like a year out of college. So
yeah, man. So was it the medical billing company that you were using with the hospice that kind of spurred this thought of let's go to the Philippines and find people that can work with us?
So the EMR that we're using is you're from the hospice space, so we were using Solo.
Oh, okay.
And we were using their revenue cycle management, and so it was ended up being outsourced to the Philippines, and we thought we could do a better job and turn around, especially the parts of the Medicaid billing process were tedious that we could do faster. So we set up an office there, and then when we saw all the like how much our outcomes changed and how much we liked it, we said like, oh, I think this is gonna be an actual business. And then we started with like friends and family and said, hey, can you add 5 people here or 10 people here? And kind of that was the impetus for starting Support Zebra.
All right, now's the part of the show where I feel the most uncomfortable, but my therapist says I need to face my fears. So here we are. I've started a newsletter and I want you to subscribe. And what you're going to get every single week are the aggregated conversations from that week that I have on this podcast with an overview of what their business actually looks like. I'm also going to throw in a review of 1 or 2 businesses that are listed for sale. I'll give you my opinion on whether or not the EBITDA multiple is good, or there's customer concentration, or there's red flags or green flags. And then lastly, I'm going to give you 1 piece of actionable advice every single week on how to buy your first business. So click the link below, subscribe to my newsletter, and let's get back into the show. How often were you going to the Philippines? Or was it like once a year and you were just managing remotely?
At its peak, I was probably going quarterly, every couple months. My business partner, my first cousin, Nino, lives there and is based there full time. And so was our managing director, basically country head of the Philippines. Now he's our chief culture officer, chief people and culture officer. And so he manages the operation side of things in the Philippines full time.
I mean, because that would freak me out, doing something international, setting up that much of your business. But obviously you have family there. And thankfully it sounds like you have a cousin who's also your business partner. He's based in the Philippines?
Based in the Philippines, based in our headquarters. Yeah. So
dude,
that is a huge unfair advantage for sure.
Yeah.
Not to worry about like the trust factor and
How common was using the Philippines as a call center for not large corporations, but like small and medium-sized businesses back then?
I'm going to try to have to remember this, but
because it's obviously grown in popularity, right? Or do I just not know?
Like,
okay.
I think Somewhere and Sagan and have put a ton of light on the Philippines as an outsourcing destination as a whole. And I think that's all kind of relatively recently, especially for the small SMB where like I need to hire one person or I need to hire two people. I think that's only in the last couple of years that it's really become like, well, actually, you know what? I take that back. Tim Ferriss, the 4-Hour Work Week. Like I can hire a VA for in the Philippines. Like that was a big publicity boost, but I think it's only now becoming mainstream.
So for a lot of people, they're looking at this and they're like, oh my gosh, this guy's got 1,000 employees, $1.2 million a month in MRR. That must be nice to, he's young, but, they forget about 2009, 2010, 2011, like not just scaling a business during that time, but dude, the great financial crisis was legit. You and I are about the same age, actually. So you're 39, 40-ish, 37. Okay. So I'm 38. Okay. And like going through that time, you just didn't know what was going to happen. It was like every day there was this massive change to the macroeconomic environment. What did the first few years look like, and who were your core customers when you launched?
Do you want me to give you a side story about on a business before that was affected by the?
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
So right after college, graduated from college, I told you I had a strong connection to the Philippines. A family member of mine said, hey, check out this mining project. I think it has a ton of legs. There's copper being used everywhere. It's being used in manufacturing. You should come over here and see what you can do here. It's like, okay. So me, my business partner now, Imtiaz, and his cousin went to the Philippines, 21, 22-year-olds, fresh, went over to the Philippines, met with this mining site, like a mining company there. They couldn't find distribution. So we said, okay, I want to be your international agent. They're only selling locally. Let's go there. So we signed exclusive export rights with them. And we went over to so we went over to China, looked at, like, tapped everybody on our network. My family is, my dad's side of the family is Chinese. So went over to China. He had a family member that's in the director of foreign affairs, or is in the foreign affairs department there. And then we also went, Alibaba was huge there. So we just blasted anybody, like, do you need raw copper ore from the Philippines?
Oh my God.
We actually signed a letter of credit. Eventually it was all test shipments. Like initial test shipment was like $200,000. And then if that test shipment went well, it would have been millions of dollars a month.
Yeah.
Coming in the door. And then we were like, oh, this is it. Like we made it. We don't have to work. We've already made it. And so we're part of the letter of credit, the requirements for it to be paid, or it has to be X% copper so that you don't have a bunch of like unusable.
Yeah, they're worried about the purity of the copper.
They're worried about the purity, but they don't want to waste. It's being shipped over in a container or on a barge, so you don't want to waste shipping rocks that don't have any copper content.
Got it. Yeah.
And this is August 2008, right after graduation, right at the height of the commodities bubble. And so at the peak, raw or grade A copper was $9,000 a ton. When we left and came back to the US, it was under $4,000 a ton. So like,
oh my gosh.
All of our assumptions and all of our pricing, all of that went out the window.
Did you lose anything on that business?
We put some down payments on initial stocks that we obviously were never able to get back.
You didn't have like $3 million order.
No. I want to say we put down 15,000, 15 to 20,000 that we borrowed from parents for as a hold on that initial inventory and stock. And so that died a very quick death. We came back to the US. I took an offer as a staff accountant that I had before graduation. I went back to them and said, hey, startup life didn't work out so well. You have me. And then worked for I basically had like a 1.5-year corporate stint as my only corporate experience.
And then you went and started the hospice, and then you went and started the outsource company as well at the same time?
Yep.
Well, crazily enough, like copper's making a comeback right now. There's a shortage worldwide.
Yeah.
Dude, copper is off the charts.
Yeah.
What did that experience teach you? Like, what did you take from that experience?
Don't count your eggs before they've hatched. Or was it don't count your chickens before they hatch?
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever that quote is. There's no free lunch. Like we thought that it was going to be super easy, and then
How did that experience change your approach to launching this company? I'm going to call it a call center, but to launching the call center in the Philippines, because I would probably be freaked out. First of all, you're the United Nations over here. Your freaking dad's Chinese, your mom's Filipino. Somehow you're getting in with like the foreign services government, I don't even know, person in China, but you also have relatives in the Philippines to staff your call center. So freaking kudos to you. That's an amazing unfair advantage. But did it freak you out a little bit to start this business and have such an international component to it?
So I want to be clear to both you and your audience. Like it sounds like we had this all like planned out. Like we became experts overnight. Like when we were doing the whole copper mining thing, if you picked up a rock and you picked up copper ore, I would not be able to tell you the difference. Tell the difference between the two. Like we went into it completely oblivious, completely like having no idea about mining or distribution works, and I think one thing we were fearless in calling, like cold calling calling competitors, calling buyers, cold calling sellers. Like I remember when we were figuring out like, hey, oh yeah, just we'll send you an LC and we can do the first test shipment. And it's like, I don't even know what an LC is. Let me Google that really quick. Oh, that's a letter of credit. How does that work? Who do I know that's done letter of credits before with import and export? Like, so we were figuring it out on the fly, 100%. So don't let me fool you that we came in.
No. I've heard this quote before. Like there needs to be a balance, especially with founders who do anything significant, of smarts and ambition, but naivete. Because if you knew everything up front, many people just give up. They're like, it's too hard, right? But you need that sort of unknown, like inexperience, because that's what keeps your optimism. That's what keeps you taking these bets or making these guesses, I guess, to kind of keep moving forward. So I get it, man. You are learning on the fly, but what a valuable experience. Like that is, 100%. I know it sucks that at the time, I'm sure you're like, oh my gosh, my life is over. I'm never going to be an entrepreneur. Maybe not, but that's how I would have reacted to it. But the experience of that is just incredible.
Yeah, I think also really the value and the power of trust. Now I'm in the business for 15 years and have a very trusted network of partners and vendors when it comes to marketing or paid media or SEO, website building, like whatever. Like I have that trusted network and circle where I can call. It's like, hey, I'm starting a new entity. Here's all the legal formation, websites, and all that. Like I take that for granted now, but starting off, you have to vet a ton of folks, and so I think power of trust and building your networks, I think, is a huge thing. And I think also the hospice company exposed me to EO very early on. So I think I joined EO when I was like 24. Everybody there were much older than the average age was much older than I was. And so seeing all that, it was just like a shortcut of like, oh, wow, this is how folks with successful business act and how they interact with other people. And here's experience share around sales or marketing or management.
So when you started though, backing up to support Zebra in its inception, was there a core offering or a core demographic? Like what was the original thesis? We're going to do medical billing for hospice companies. Was that how you started it? No.
I mean, our core thesis was if you're willing to write a check, you are our ideal client profile. So whatever you need in terms of outsourcing, you're willing to pay for it. We do exactly what you want us to do.
When did you sort of evolve to this focus on SaaS? Because I think it seems like a very smart strategy, but why did you end up settling on SaaS and how did you get there?
That's fairly recently. So probably in the last 4 or 5 years. So for the first 10 years, we were just general outsourcing specialist. You figure out you have a need, general customer service outsourcing specialist. You have a customer service need, we'll go and we can figure out a solution for you. And then we looked at our client list and it was very heavily focused on SaaS and e-com. Just because of the first 10 years, we didn't have any filters. We have healthcare, fintech, retail, distribution. We have clients all over the place. But when we looked at it, like SaaS and ecom were the clients that were really growing and where the revenue year over year was increasing to us. We felt like it's a growing industry and will continue to be a growing industry. And so we kind of just ended up narrowing our focus based on like about when we were serving kind of everybody. We saw like, hey, here's the two subsets that we support and that we feel like we do really well with. Yeah, so it's SaaS and ecom. And so ecom, like one of our big like household brands that we work with, AG1 Athletic Greens, we've been doing customer service for them since 2009, 2010.
Wow.
I met the founder at a Summit Series conference back in Miami. I still remember the Summit Series Miami. And we've been doing their customer service ever since.
So a lot of people will talk about when starting out, there's a saying in SaaS, land and expand, sure, which is like go hyper niche, and then you can expand into different product categories and offerings. It sounds like you were the opposite. You're the opposite approach. It's like, I'm everything to everybody. And then you eventually went and decided to narrow down and niche down. Was that intentional, unintentional? Like what made you do that strategy?
The niching down was intentional for sure.
Okay.
The delivery side became a bit complicated when we were like, well, if you're not an expert in anything, you're not an expert. If you're an expert in everything, you're not an expert in anything.
Right.
So we saw more niche competitors going after like pure tech or pure healthcare and seeing like they just go deeper, but they're also able to charge a premium. Their go-to-market function becomes a lot clearer. Their outreach becomes a lot clearer. The delivery becomes a lot easier because like if we are able to train ecom, for example, like, okay, we're as our ecom 101 onboarding, we train you in Shopify, we train you in Magento, we train you in BigCommerce. So like we have that clear depth. In addition to Shopify for the shopping cart, we can also train you in Intercom, like the whole e-commerce tech stack. Same goes for SaaS. So we saw a lot of value add in going super deep as opposed to being general. And it also made it easier from a training perspective, like, hey, we have an ecom training class and we have a SaaS training class versus we have 10 different industries we're in, like having to do training classes for each and customizing for each was very complicated.
When did you said 4 or 5 years ago is when you actually sat down and decided to make this? Why did you make the switch then?
I think the reason why we were not forced to or challenged to is we started working with a marketing consultant and it's like, what do y'all do? Who's your ICP? And I couldn't give him a straight answer. And I was like, well, we do this, but we also do this, and we also do that.
We do everything for everyone.
We do everything. And he's like, well, that's not going to work. And so, yeah, it was a marketing consultant that.
Why did you bring a marketing consultant in?
It wasn't just a marketing; it was a full service marketing agency. It was like one of those full on lead gen agencies where they're going to do outbound, they were going to do our pay per click, they were going to do everything. And so, while that didn't work out, I think the core premise of
like the exercise they made you go through,
like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. So, yeah.
How big were you at the time? How many employees and kind of like what was your MRR? Do you remember?
I don't know what it is actually. It's 5 years ago, but I'll tell you I'll tell you the journey through COVID because that's a fun.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, and I'm also curious. That's a big shift to go from providing everything to everybody to, okay, we only do these two, e-commerce and SaaS. And mainly I'm curious if it paid off, right? Like what were you then?
We didn't stop taking care of our legacy clients. We kept it on. If somebody came in and said that, and they had a need and that was not in e-commerce SaaS, I have a very difficult problem saying no to revenue. So if it's big enough and we think we can help, I'll still say yes. We just don't actively go after them.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So walk me through what happened during COVID then.
So COVID, we were at, I want to say 400 team members, all on site.
On site being in the Philippines.
Yeah, in the Philippines, all 100% all on site.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially overnight, where everybody went on lockdown, we were 100% we went from 100% work on site to 100% work from home in like 10 days.
Wow.
Thankfully, the Philippines economy is so dependent on outsourcing that we were always essential workers, like healthcare workers were here in the US. But we went from 400-ish team members down to 200 when everything went off. Everybody, all of our clients, especially e-com, said, "Hey, let's cut our team in half. We don't know what's going to happen. We think that sales are going to go down. We got to cut costs." So we went from 400 down to 200 in
Oh my gosh, man.
in like 30 days. And then we're in the middle of all these layoffs, and then one by one, everybody starts coming back saying, "Oh my gosh, our volume is through the roof. Hire everybody back, and then add more team members." So we went from 400 down to 200, up to 600 by the end of that year in 2020. So
oh
talk
my
about a roller
gosh,
coaster.
that's insane. I'm curious too, did it change the way that you operate in the Philippines? Like, do you have physical offices now where they all come to, or is everything done, VoIP style, and it's disaggregated, people are working from home? Like, what does it look like now?
No, it's probably 50 to 60% on site now. All of our healthcare accounts, fintech accounts want an on-site physical presence purely for security, and it's also much easier to build morale, build culture, and build camaraderie on site than it is work from home. Work from home, you have to be a lot more purposeful with it. I think what COVID did was it opened up the lanes for like a Somewhere and a Sagan. Like it opened up the lanes for a bunch of all the other folks to come in. And by the way, I don't think any of them are competitors. I look at them as
it seems very different.
Yeah, I look at them as like global recruiting agencies or global talent recruiting, where they'll hire 1, 2, 3 people, but the key distinction is that they don't manage the outcomes. Like,
yes,
they might hire one person. That's on you. It's on you to manage. And like, we've managed outcomes, we manage performance, we manage the KPIs, and in most cases, our MSAs are built and where we have strong performance incentives and kickers.
Somewhere places talent.
Yeah,
your company is a customer service solution company, like that happens to be outsourced in the Philippines, right?
Initially,
yeah. So like, they're similar in the sense that you're using global talent, but they're totally different business models. That is fascinating to actually think about. So you went from 400 in COVID to about 1,000 ish today. So you've 2.5x'd during COVID.
Correct.
That's pretty freaking incredible. And you hit on something when you were talking, is you were like, well, we like to have offices because it improves morale. And I know you kind of like glossed over that, but that's always been for me also a major question mark with outsourcing companies. Is I think that company culture is such a differentiator, especially in services businesses, because like you said earlier, we're not selling a software product and we're not selling a physical good or a widget. We're selling services. And so our people are literally our product. I say that all the time in home health and hospice, like our nurses, the ones that are at the bedside, they are the product. It's not, a thing that we sell. And so I've always loved home health and hospice because I knew that I could outcompete by building really good teams, getting really good buy-in, creating an environment where people go above and beyond and care about each other, et cetera. And that's an interesting way that you said about it. It sounds like you approach this business the same way, right? Like, I think a lot of people look at outsourcing as, oh, I'm just going to go in and it's going to go to the Philippines. I'm going to save a lot of money. But that's not the way that you've approached this.
No, not at all. So I do want to touch this isn't just a random office in a random country. My family's from there. Our headquarters is a town that my parents grew up in. And so we're now one of the larger employers in that town, which is super satisfying, super gratifying to me to be able to create all of that opportunity. And from the very beginning, we said that culture was going to be one of our biggest competitive advantages. I think it's also, from a marketing and sales perspective, one of the most difficult things to convey during the sales process, because everybody says like, oh, we have a fantastic culture, we have an amazing culture. It's very difficult to actually, like, unless you've actually gone on site. Like, we have 100% close rate. When somebody goes and visits the Philippines, does a site visit, they are 100% guaranteed to be a client in our 15 years of business. And they see it because we have a chef on site, we have a cafeteria on site, we have a clinic, we have nurse and doctors 24/7, so that they don't have, if somebody gets sick in the middle of their shift, They can visit the clinic, save money. We have our own network of shuttles and vans for pickup and drop off. We did this during COVID when they didn't want to ride public transportation. And then when we tried to take it away as a perk, we kind of had a big uproar. Like, I guess this perk is staying. We pay for full healthcare benefits. We have our own internal Make-A-Wish program. So we grant as many wishes as possible every quarter. We call it the Zeal. So support zebra. A pack of zebras is a Zeal. So the Zeal grants as many wishes as possible every quarter. So that could be one team member, her son was having developmental issues or problems and challenges. So we paid for a mental health checkup as well as therapy. When he got married 15 years ago, he couldn't afford a wedding reception. So we did one 15 years later with him and his close family and relatives.
That's awesome, man.
Family. One bucket list for her mom was to be a business owner and like in the Philippines, they have what's called like street stands or sari stores. And we built up that first street stand along with the initial inventory for it.
I think that's freaking amazing. I have some wrap-up questions on the business, and then we're going to go to some rapid fire. So before I wrap up, tell me, generally speaking, you don't have to tell me your company's margins, but like in this industry, what kind of margins do companies like yours typically experience?
Yeah, so there's a number of publicly traded big call center companies. I think they're in the low teens to, generally speaking, I think it's in between 12 to 25%. 25% on the extreme high side. Most, which is where we land, is probably in the 15 to 20% margin rate, EBITDA margin range. Yeah.
How many people are stateside based, and how many of them are? Well, I guess I know many of them are based in the Philippines, but like, what's stateside? Like, you have an office right now. Who else is in this office with you? What do they do?
Just my business partner that's in this office. We have the sales function is stateside. They're distributed. Okay. They work remote.
Cool.
So we've got team members in Vegas, in Utah, one other one in Houston. So sales function is here. Account management will eventually be here, but it's in the Philippines now. But yeah, just the sales function and me, really.
Second to last question on the business. What's your biggest bottleneck to growth right now? Like, if you had a customer that was going to come on and they were going to double the call volume that your team handled?
No problem.
No problem. Okay.
Yeah, no. If you asked me 5 years ago, the problem would have been delivery and like how can we. But one of our core team members, our president now, used to run, was the country manager for Concentrix. For employee number one, when he left, he oversaw 18,000 people. So,
holy crap.
So he's been there, done that. So from a delivery standpoint, I have zero concerns. That was not always the case. Now I would say it's top of funnel buyers interested in outsourcing.
Yeah. All right. Last question. What do you say to somebody who's sitting at home and listening to the Twitter gurus that are like, you could launch a call center. You should find a niche and launch your own call center and anyways, what would you say to somebody who wanted to start their own call center?
I think they have enough naivete to say, like, good luck. Like, I think you can make it work. That like I did. I would love to see that. But honestly, and this is not to scare competition away, but like, I feel like there are much easier, less grind businesses than call centers and hospice. They're both 24/7.
Yeah.
They both are people as a product. So they're both high management, high touch businesses. So
okay, that's fair. All right, here's my rapid fire questions. What do you love about this business?
I love creating opportunity. I love the smiles we create when we have team members that we've uplifted and kind of moved up the socioeconomic ladder.
That's right. What do you hate about it?
Managing people is very, very difficult. I'll just leave it at that. Like there's no science. It's an art. So
it's like when you haven't had kids yet, but one day you'll have kids. And kids have this amazing ability to be the best and worst thing in your life. And that's what it's like when you manage people, right? Like for me, it's like the best part of the job, but then there's also the really crappy parts that you don't want to deal with. So I get it. For you, what industry are you most jealous of right now? Like you said, there's easier ways to make money that aren't as much of a grind as call centers and hospice. What are you jealous of at the moment?
I feel like grass is always greener on the other side, but I would say I'm super jealous on the real estate folks that have assets and collect rent and have to do property maintenance. I think that's like my next
That's interesting. I mean, you have a business that's probably kicking off really good cash. Why aren't you putting a bunch in real estate?
I have put a bunch in real estate, but I'm also still, in addition, I'm also managing 1,000
Yeah.
over
Okay.
1,000
Fair.
at the
Fair.
same
Good
time.
point. Yep. If you have 2 hours in your day, no family time, no work time, what are you obsessed with right now? What are you spending your time on in those 2 hours?
I am obsessed with AI, everything AI. Partly because I find it fascinating, partly out of self-preservation. Like 10 years from now, is there even going to be a call center agent? Or is that just going to be an AI agent? I mean, optimistically, I'd love to think that we're going to be able to figure out and adapt and become we have the relationships with our clients. We have the domain experience. We have the knowledge on what our clients want. And like, we should be the ones to create and build out their AI strategy and implementations. That's how I look at it. And so I'm obsessed about it. I tinker on it. I probably put on and sign up for 5 new demos a week.
All right, here's the last question. What advice would you give to your pre-entrepreneurial self?
Just get started. I feel like so many folks get analysis paralysis and don't ever get started because they're waiting for the perfect time, or they're waiting for a big bonus, and they don't have their first customer or whatever. And so I think just getting started is just step one, and then you'll learn and figure it out from there if you're meant for entrepreneurship.
Okay. Well, this has been awesome. Dude, I'm so excited to see you over the next few months. Like you have amazing domain expertise. You're well-spoken. You've got great success and experience. I think you're going to blow up and be able to give a lot of people a lot of really good advice, especially in this world as we're starting to outsource, more and more in the SMB space. Where can people come find you?
Just my X, Twitter. It's Nathan Yap, my name, Nathanyap.
Cool. All right, man. Well, this was awesome. Look forward to following up with you in a bit.
Thanks for having me.